Hola, and welcome to Power and Perspective. I am April. I forgot now, guys. Seriously, this is Aaron.
Yeah, I think you got it. Yeah.
This is Aaron. And we are here to reframe conversations with empathy and humor. Today, we have a special guest, Sarah. Say hello, Sarah.
Hello.
We're going to talk about autism and neuro... Oh, crap, I
Diversity.
knew I was going to forget it. Neurodiversity. I was thinking like neuro-linguistic, but that's something different.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, that would be a weird topic. Do people have different perspectives on neuro-linguisticness?
I guess it depends on the nature of the conversation you would want to have about that. Because I think you and I have differences about linguistics in general.
I know, that's because you're so like, I was going to use an offensive term. Not diligent. I was going to say like Nazi.
Structured. I believe in linguistic structure as an important part of communication.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Or like rules and stuff. Phooey pooey on that. I say phooey pooey. Well, we have Sarah here today. Sarah, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know just your overall perspective of how autism affects your life.
Well, like April said, my name's Sarah, and I have a 21-year-old son with autism. He was diagnosed 3 days before his third birthday. So I've been around, I've seen a lot of changes. When we were first diagnosed with autism, there wasn't a lot here in the Valley. Basically, he was diagnosed. I was given a piece of paper saying, okay, contact Feet of Southern Nevada and Dr. Fricky. And then they sent me on my way. And you leave the office going, what do I do now? Well, I just hit the ground running. I tried to use my resources, what I was given. I immediately signed him up for the school district, and he started in the school district when he was 3 in the early childhood program. I had a success story with CCSD. There are many horror stories out there. My son excelled through there. We got early intervention. He had therapy. It's something that's crucial when kids are diagnosed with autism. You can't stop. You can't go in denial. My husband and I were like, okay, this is what it is. We're going to give him the best we can. We were told he would never graduate school. We were told he would never play in a baseball team. We were told so many that he couldn't do. Well, like I said, he's a success story. He graduated Green Valley High School with a standard diploma. He's played baseball. He's done Taekwondo. He's taught himself sign language. You just have to believe in your kid and use your resources that are out there.
That's awesome. Can we go back to
Sure.
just for, well, first of all, for everybody's sake, CCSD is the Clark County School
I'm sorry.
District in Las Vegas. No, that's our job. You're good. Is the school district here in Las Vegas? What made you bring him to the doctor? What were the signs that you noticed that you knew something might not be right?
Well, let me back up a little bit. When my son Aaron was born, he was also born with a syndrome called Poland syndrome. And what that is his left hand was fused together and he doesn't have a left pectoral muscle. So there's like no boob right there. So before his hands were separated, my doctor told us about, God, I think it was called Family Connection, where you could go and kind of get some services and just meet families. So we went there and we met a good therapist who was working on occupational therapy with him. And she saw quirky things. Like he would get a whisk and he would just look at it. And then he liked to wear like a colander on his head. And then my husband and I thought something looked odd. And then we had read a little bit about autism and what to expect your first years. There's like this much about it, but enough to kind of say maybe. So we kind of had an inclination, but we're like, okay, whatever, maybe. So then his therapist said, do you want to take him to special children's clinic and let's have him tested? We're like, well, okay. Well, that was grueling because they put your kid like on display, like trying to say, like almost, I hate to say this, almost like a dog. Okay, jump, do this. And he didn't. And then as a parent, you're like, but he does that at home. They're like, but he doesn't do it for us. He doesn't do it in all cross settings. So you go home defeated going, oh my God, what's wrong with my kid? Well, after a little bit of testing, they did come back with they were going to give me a diagnosis. And I remember them saying, don't be surprised if they use the word MR. And I'm like, excuse me? My son doesn't possess any of those characteristics. She goes, just be prepared because the autism and MR kind of are hand in hand, which, okay.
Is it?
I know of a couple. No, it's more, I know one with Down syndrome and autism. It depends on how low you are. But this was just what they told me, 18 years ago. But luckily, they never said that word. They just gave me these goals. And I'm like, for Clark, for the school district. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's never going to get to these goals. Well, now when I go back and look at that first IEP, which is an individual educational plan, I laugh going, really? This is ridiculous. But, and then, like I said, back then they didn't have many resources, just like here's a neuropsychologist to see and here's a parent support group, you're on your own. And it's scary because this is your baby. And my favorite thing to tell people is there's a poem out there and it's like your whole life you want to go to Holland. You just want to go to Holland. You want to see the tulips. You want to see the little Dutch people. That's your vision. And then you get on the plane, you've read all the books, you're ready to go to Holland. And the plane lands and you're like in Egypt. You're like, well, I'm not prepared for this. No one gave me this. What do I do now? And so you just buy a new set of books and a new set of friends and you just move on.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. And Egypt is just as good as Holland. It's just
right. It's just you just got to look at it a little differently. That's all it is. All it is.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So, as Aaron was growing up, what was his perspective? I know you can't say what he was thinking because we never know what our children are thinking.
Nor do we want to.
Yes. What did he experience, do you think?
He always wanted to do, autism kind of means into oneself. Like he would just feel like into himself. He really didn't care what anybody else was doing. He wanted to do what he wanted to do how he wanted to do it, and when he wanted to do it. And I spent a lot of money on stuff that all the typical kids did, like the Legos. He didn't want to do it. We did soccer one day. It's like, okay, kids, let's do this. he did what he wanted to. So it's hard to say what his vision was, because in his eyes, he's him, and that's how we treated him.
Well, and that, what you just described, is literally what I strive for. And I think what a lot of people strive for is to be their authentic self without worrying about what other people think, or like without having things, expectations put upon them. Like, that's literally my goal, is to be able to live like that.
One of my friends, her daughter is 24. Don't slam the door, sorry. And she will sit and tell you what it's like to have autism. She said the one thing she hated was when she would have to go to social skills classes and people would tell her, okay, you're 12, girls need to do this and do this and do this. And she's like, no, if I'm 16 years old, I want to play with my Monster High dolls. That's what I want to do. Stop forcing me, telling me I need to listen to Justin Bieber and wear makeup. So, like you said, you need to let people be themselves, but just kind of, I don't know, that's just the hardest thing, is trying to have people mold. And Molly had a problem with this. My daughter had a problem with therapists trying to mold Aaron into something and somebody that he wasn't.
That just shows you how far this conformity push goes.
Right.
Like, how far we want. It's because we, as a society, feel like we need control, and to have control, you need to fit into this box, right? And what's sad is it's not just students with autism, or like, everybody wants to do this. It's just that students like Aaron can say, you know what? No.
Yeah.
That I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be who I am, and I don't need to fit into your box.
Well, and
then sometimes they blame it on, oh, he's acting like that because he has autism. No, he's acting like that because he has a voice, and his voice is, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And you can't make me. But like I said, they look at that, oh, he's being difficult.
He's defiant.
No, yeah, exactly. So that's been a challenge too. Like, people forcing him to eat stuff. He doesn't want to. He doesn't like it. He doesn't want to eat it. Is he a picky eater? Yeah, but don't make him do stuff he doesn't want to.
What were you gonna say, Aaron?
Yeah, and without getting too like preachy on the whole whitewashing and conformity thing, like from the doctor's perspective, even from like a medical perspective, we have that societal construct that we've built over time, where when you're trying to help people operate within it, they have things that they think are correct and are helpful. And these aren't people necessarily from the medical perspective. I mean, we can talk about political and everything else, but that they're really trying to help, even though it's counterproductive, and it's not. And I'm sure you've seen progress over time in the medical community with that, the taking a different approach than, well, you need to do these sorts of things if you're going to be normal or successful or whatever.
And approaches are different for every person with autism. Let me just get that out there. What works for my son doesn't work for John with autism, and what works for John with autism doesn't work for Sally with autism. It's just like with any person, it's different. Everybody's autism looks different.
Yeah.
And so that's why there's so many different programs and therapies and things out there, because something's going to work for someone. You just have to find it.
Yeah.
And what are the goal of the therapies, do you think?
Well, there's a lot of different therapies. Like, depending upon your level of autism, there's ABA therapy, which is applied behavior analysis, which you're kind of teaching your child, first of all, to be able to sit in a chair, to be able to like listen to directions, be able to express their wants and their needs. Teaching them social stories. A lot of kids with autism, that's how they learn, making a story all about them and putting them in that social situation. Like my son, to this day, will always carry around 4 straws. He won't tell you why. It's ever since he's been 4 years old. He'll have 4 straws, and they'll be somewhere on his body, either underneath his arm or in his pocket. It's just like a security. Well, you have to just find out, I mean, that's something else, but like the social story, we made one about the straw boy. We would call him the straw boy, how people would make fun of him with the straws because we wanted to prepare him for that. So that kind of, he was like, he didn't care what people thought. He's going to carry those straws anyway. Another one of my friends, her daughter was scared of escalators. So they went to the Galleria Mall and they would make a social story with her riding the escalator, all her stuffed animals riding the escalator to teach her that this is how you do it. There's no reason to be scared. So basically the therapies, you like have a therapist and you're talking with the parent and their teacher and finding out what that need for that child is, and then a whole program is created for that individualized child to help them succeed.
Okay.
And then there are other therapies also. Some people do chemical therapies. You know, there's a lot like a chelation out there, which I never went to. There's a lot out there. You just have to do your research.
Do you feel like the therapies in general, I wouldn't say any individual therapy or a therapist, are striving to make them succeed in society and be more quote unquote normal?
I don't. I think when you get older, like right now, in being a young adult, they have more life skills classes that teach our kiddos how to function in life. Like Aaron's done so many of them that have taught him how to cook, wash clothes, go to the grocery store, pay bills. They even have overnight camps that teach you how to like live with a roommate. So as the group of kids where my son is, this age group is kind of evolving, and more companies are coming out with life skills to try to get these kids, because your goal is you want your child to live
Independently, yeah.
or under a little bit of supervision. So there are agencies out there that do teach these kiddos like life skill lessons.
What, growing up when he was, let's keep thinking of him when he was younger, did you run into any, I don't know the right way to say it, just people with negative perspectives, I guess I would say?
I've had my moments. I mean, I can turn my head around and go into mama mode in a quick moment. People will say something and I'll throw that autism card out. We've had looks. People are not, kids are kind, especially if you go to school with the same kids that they know, and especially the girls, they tend to want to like mother the boys. High school was a little rough. He got a little bit of bullying, but luckily there was enough. The teachers were good, the kids were good, and kind of protected him. Some of you try to, it happens, but you just want to pray it doesn't happen, and you kind of close your eyes, going, "If I don't know, it's okay." And just teaching them that things aren't okay. Like if this happens, you need to tell me or tell someone, and just hope that your kid has the verbal skills to be able to tell you, because some don't. Some can't say, "Mom, Johnny's picking on me," or "That boy made me do this." And that it's sad when they can't do that. So you have to find their voice somewhere, or find a way for them to have a voice to tell you those things.
So Aaron sounds like he was pretty strong and confident in his in himself. Do you think those incidences, or did he express that those incidences affected him in any way?
To me, you mean to like advocate for himself? Or
no, was he upset by them, or do you think it was more upsetting to you or the people
no,
who were watching?
He doesn't care. It's more upset me. He'd care less. He thinks if somebody's laughing at him, he did something funny. He'd laugh with them.
Yeah.
Oh, they're paying attention to me. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
And you're like, they're laughing. No, we could care less. Which I guess is good, because he doesn't know that he's being picked on or something. But
that's I think it's great. There's such great qualities that, again, a lot of us strive for.
Oh yeah. Sometimes I go, gosh, if I could just have autism for one day, just do what I wanted to, not care what anybody thinks. It must, but then I'm like, no.
No. I'm sure there's struggles. That's a good point. What does Aaron express as his struggles, or does he?
He doesn't. He will. He will do anything. He will try anything. Like right now, he's doing CrossFit and he runs. They run around a lap and he'll run with a medicine ball. He does the battle ropes. I mean, he will try anything. He feels that he can do anything that anybody else can. He might do it differently or oddly, but he will do it.
That's awesome.
And like I said, he's fine. He has no fault. He has no errors and no faults in his mind.
Yeah. That is so, again, a quality we could all learn from.
I know,
like, this is just blowing my mind, because this is literally what I work with. Like my motto right now that I want to bring to the classroom. I want teachers to bring to themselves, because if a teacher can feel like Aaron feels, if a teacher can know themselves, be themselves, act authentically, and have confidence like that, imagine what an impact that could be on a classroom.
Well, it radiates positivity, and I mean, hi mom, how was your day today? It's just he can do that, and it's just like every night, good night, mom, I love you, and just he you had the worst day, and you hear that, it's like he just brightens me, and he's just so positive. He doesn't get like I said, I have a good story. I mean, he doesn't get depressed. I did see a little, like during COVID when he wasn't around his friends, I saw a little decline, but I was up on it immediately. I'm like, okay, nope, we got to get up, we got to fix this.
Yeah. Aaron, can you explain, because I don't totally know, neurodiversity and its relation to autism?
Yeah. So in 1997, and I screwed up by not getting a last name, Judy, and I don't have the article.
Judy Bloom,
Miss Judy,
some Judy. She was writing a thesis for support groups for people on the spectrum, and her plan was to create a movement for anybody that felt kind of outside. So anybody with autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and a whole host of other, and I'm reticent to use the word disorders at the time.
It's a huge umbrella.
Yeah, and that was the whole idea of it. And the more I read, honestly, the more they my parents spent a lot of time with me in trying to wrangle ADHD and drugs, and tried everything and whatever else. And I don't deal with any of it like that anymore. But you definitely see things differently, that there's not really anything wrong, like, as you go through it. And as you interact with more people, like, there are struggles, but it opens you up more, really, to just the wide breadth of humanity, I guess.
Do you think the struggles mostly come from, though, the forced conformity?
Well, I mean, it's so there's the societal construct that we have, and it's like you were saying, it's all about fitting everybody into these tight little bubbles, or in these pre-built houses,
little boxes made of
that's where I
ticky
was-
tacky, and they.
I'm glad you got where I was going. But as we progress more, it seems pretty obvious that the only reason that we might see like an uptick in these sorts of things is because of the visibility, because of the internet, because of the widespread access to everybody has to each other, and that this has been basically an evolutionary thing, for as long as humans have been around. I mean, that's how.
You like how I filled in that very technical word? I know you couldn't think of the word thing, so I just wanted to give it to you. So basically, like, this neurodiversity is evolutionarily happening, and not only that, evolutionarily positive. Because diversity in nature is good.
Well, I mean,
I'm so good with words
it's
today.
not. I mean, and evolution isn't like the result of evolution is inherently good. The process of evolution is zero. It's not positive or negative, because it may result in extinction. But that's kind of the point, is that this is humanity responding to challenges, sometimes successfully, sometimes unsuccessfully. But the real problem is that our society as a whole has focused on the negative side of all of it, and not focused on any positive side of it.
And it makes me think about all the, like you said, neurodiversity, from autism to ADHD to all the other things you said, but that you have in a classroom. And because the way we have our classroom set up, you need to conform. We need conformity to teach. We need this to serve this purpose. And we have these kids in there that we are putting in these boxes and basically stifling and drugging and like behavior management and all these things. But what if we saw them all from a different light? You know what I mean? What if we could rearrange our classrooms to amplify these diversities, to hone in on Aaron's person of who he is and spreading that. Imagine spreading that to a whole entire classroom. That'd be phenomenal. Imagine spreading an energy and excitement for everything you do with ADHD. You know what I mean? Like, imagine if we could just embrace these neurodiversities instead of stifling them.
It's inefficient is the ultimate problem.
Well, look at the size of the classrooms too. I mean, and then also it's like, then you get that one kiddo with ADHD and automatically you think of the negative. Yeah. You don't think of the positive, like, let me channel this kiddo's brain and find out what he's really good at, and let's focus on that. Like, okay, like, my son likes sign language. Oh, wow. Maybe he can get up and sign one of my lessons and just utilize his talent. And then that's going to broaden everybody's mind. It's going to just open everybody up a little more. But, I have kiddos that I teach that have different I want to say abilities. And so I like to focus on those as well.
Yeah.
And it's a lesson that I think is good for parents in general, is to lean into strengths and support and encourage as often as possible anything that shows promise, because that's how we all develop and get into our careers or anything else, like the things that we have the aptitude and the love for, that if we are more encouraged in those, regardless of the circumstances, that we'll all be more successful and be able to contribute what we're going to contribute to society.
And not even just strengths, just differences, just like not okay in our, because when we look at strengths, we still look at our societal construct, like being able to sit in a chair and be quiet for an entire lesson might be perceived as a strength. If I'm a teacher teaching 35 kids, like you said, to me that's a strength. But like I had a kid one time who used to sit under the table. That's all good. If you're listening,
as long as you're listening to me, that's okay.
Yeah. He's also the first child who ever in my career told me no. I almost lost my ever living mind. He's like, I guess now as I look back on it, he was using his voice. But no one had ever used their voice with me before in all of my 15 years of teaching. I was like, okay, you can sit under the table, but you need to put your shoes on. He's like, no. I was like, what? You're confused at who you're talking to.
Well, and I'm curious, Sarah, in all your experience with the medical community, was there ever a conversation about a cure, like how to fix, or was it always kind of what you can do to help promote and adapt?
No one has ever said cure to me. It's more like this is well, also let me add to Aaron with autism, he also had a little ADHD going on there too. So I was I was one of those parents like, okay, well, I need him to sit in school to be able to pay attention. So he got a little cocktail, got a little pill every day. Now, and we took us a while to find out what worked for him, but once I found out what worked for him, he was able to sit in a chair in school and listen, and that's what got him through high school. No one ever said cure. It was more like, let's do what we can to get him to be the best he can and to be able to, um, be in society, handle himself, appropriately, just educating him and us as well. Like, how do we do this? What do we do? And sadly, there isn't a cure. It's just some people can say that they are cured. Basically, that's based on good therapies, and that's good therapies and good learning how to adjust to society.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, my cure was making a lot of lists and creating good habits. Like that's how I
Right.
dealt
And
with it. It's not there's no cure. I'm still me. I still have exactly the same problems I've always had, but you
but
develop
you know
systems
how
to
to deal
cope.
with them,
Yeah.
or right. And there's things like you said, like making lists. It's just like, I got a daughter, she's got ADHD also, and she, has to set up a schedule and not get overwhelmed by doing things and just and it's good, just it's just good things that anybody should
Yeah.
do. I know when I get overwhelmed, I make a list, and then if I do something that's not on my list, I still write it on there and cross it off so I can see that I was
Yeah.
productive because I might not do any of the other things, but I did three more. So I know I did something. I'll write them down, then scratch them off, and you got to do what works for you to make you feel
Yeah, you have to
successful.
be open and honest with yourself first
Right.
and foremost.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing is they don't know what they need. They don't know what's going to help them be successful. You can just give them like different things. Like some kiddos need a daily schedule. Like, okay, I wake up and I'm going to move my wake up over here. Then I brush my teeth. I'm going to move a visual schedule so they know that they accomplish everything every day. Some don't need the visual cues.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on the labels, on the label of autism, ADHD. They say labels are limiting. What are your thoughts?
It's just a label. I mean, it's still the person. I think it's all important just to look at the person first, then the label. Like, I would rather say, this is my son with autism versus my son is autistic. You're going to see my son Aaron first, then you're going to see the autism. It's
Yeah.
just a label. Autism's huge. You can have a little bit of autism, you can have a lot of autism, but it's still autism. So it's just a label, with ADHD. I think we all got ADHD in some form. Some need some have a little bit more, need to be more organized, but we all have it. And it's just how you handle it.
So it's like a spectrum. So that's why I think that the label is just like defining an end of a spectrum. You know what I mean? Like you said, we all have ADHD, therefore like we can all benefit like from the tools that you guys were
Right.
talking about. And so when it comes to neurodiversity as well, I mean we have Asperger's that falls like in the middle of the spectrum, and then we have, I don't know, what would you consider normal? What's the opposite of autism?
Neurotypical.
Neurotypical. I feel judged by that term. Like,
Well, and I think that the
No.
idea of the neurodiversity movement is really that there is no neurotypicality. Like there is no actual divergence. That these are all differences that have existed and levels of variation that have existed. And the only thing that's changing is how people judge each other and not so much the actual
Right.
reality of anybody's circumstances.
yeah, I wonder how many more things would come out again if a child was just allowed to be. If a
Yeah. And
child was just allowed to grow up and be. I have a class right before this, and I was just sharing this. Like, I want to see a kid who's raised in a safe, loving environment, but just allowed to be them, that doesn't have to conform, that, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what would that kid look like? Like, what would they grow up to be? And and if every kid was like that, how much more neurodiversity we would see.
But just think about it way back when, like when Temple Grandin was first diagnosed with autism, they almost didn't, they just classified everything as MR, just like you were just pushed to the side. And luckily, she had a parent and a nanny that believed in her and thought she was better. And so they helped her strive to be better. But think about back then, what did they do? You know, they handled it okay without being labeled. I mean, I don't want to say handled it okay, but they, when was the first time you even heard about autism? Mine was Rain Man, and I was like, oh my gosh. I got scared to death when they mentioned my son with autism. All I thought was Rain Man. But that's
Yeah.
just, we never heard about it until then, or I didn't at least.
It's a great
And
question. That was probably my first big exposure.
Mhm.
I think I heard of it before then.
But you didn't really know about it. You
Yeah.
heard about it, but it wasn't like, I don't know. I mean, that was just my first, and we laugh at my son, call him Sprinkle Boy every now and then, because I'm like, your autism showing, you're acting like Rain Man. Because I mean, he's like, no, I'm not. I'm like,
Your
check
autism
yourself.
show.
I mean, I can say that because but if somebody else said it, I'd be, excuse me, what?
Yeah.
I birthed him. I can say that, but
Totally.
But you
understand.
just have to have a good attitude about it, because he it's your child and you just want the best for him.
And because he does.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he has a good attitude about it.
Oh yeah. He's the happiest person you'll probably ever meet.
And
Aaron,
going
did you have a
back to your
question?
point about labels, and I know this is something that you talk about a lot, April, with just about everything. But I was watching a YouTube channel. I think it was Ask an Autistic, while I was doing some background work, and the statement made was really poignant. It was about self-diagnosis. They were talking about self-diagnosis and saying that labels are very helpful for yourself, to help you figure out maybe what it is you're dealing with, and to find help in a way that is meaningful. But it's counterproductive to put labels on others.
I think sometimes, though, it could be harmful to yourself as well, because then you become like self-fulfilling. Now, maybe not in the case with like an actual medical diagnosis. Like I don't think Aaron's gonna become more autistic because like he's been given the diagnosis of autism, but like now I can't think of a good example. But sometimes when you're labeled something, like even like you're labeled the dumb one in the family, let's say, right? And then you fail a test and you're like, okay, there I am, the dumb one. Like, so you just find things. There's a word for this. Like where
Well, yeah, if someone gives you that label, you almost feel like you have to, I don't want to say it, but you need to live up to that label. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because,
yes.
oh, no wonder I failed it. I'm dumb, but I mean, I think I know what you're trying to say, but I mean, I but the only thing is, if you say you're fat, then you're going to believe you're fat.
Yeah, or you have to be fat, or you're born
Right.
fat. Like I'm gonna be fat, so now I'm gonna prove it or something.
Right.
Well,
So I just think that labels at some point are harmful.
and that's the point about not putting labels on others. But
Others,
when
yeah.
you're in a situation where and I find myself in positions like this all the time, where you have something that you have a problem you're trying to solve, and you have an issue solving it. Identifying that in a very specific and understood way, like linguistically, helps you find solutions for that problem.
Okay.
So, like,
yeah, I
if your
understand.
resources are, say, the internet, if you live in the middle of, Podunk, Wyoming, where there's 10 people in your town, and you don't have a lot of resources, if you're going to search for those resources, and you think you're
You need a
autistic, and you
label.
start searching for that, you will find those communities and find things that you can relate to. Putting that label on yourself as a way to understand yourself and finding those resources.
I think it's the attachment to the label that concerns me. Like realizing that, okay, just like you said, like I have autism, but I am not autistic. You know what I mean? Like that isn't the entirety of me.
Well, and I think that's a
medical diagnoses.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a end game for the way our society works and pushes that on people. I don't think that.
Which is like someone that has diabetes. They have diabetes, but they're not.
Diabetes isn't me.
Right. Yeah. That's just a part of them. That's maybe I'm going to say one of their characteristics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the work I do, the class right before this, is psychosynthesis. And in psychosynthesis, the biggest part of psychosynthesis is realizing that there are different parts of you, but none of them are you. Your soul is like the loving observer. You can observe those different parts of you because either they are a medical diagnosis, which doesn't describe who you are, or they're something that has been put upon you through childhood, like I'm the leader, or I'm the smart one, or I'm a good student. Like I'm a good student. That's who it's not who I am. It's a part of me that I can observe and use as a tool.
Yeah, and to your point, there's an old Disney movie, Brink, and the whole movie is about roller skating. Which this is from the 90s. Go watch it. It's on Disney Plus. It's amazing. But
why do I not know of this?
There's lots of reasons you don't know about it. It's about skating. There's a lot of ska in the movie. It's really just overall one of the greatest movies of all time. But moving on, at one point, the kid's having a conversation with his dad because he doesn't get it. He doesn't get the whole skating thing, and he's like, it's who I am. I skate. He's like, well, yeah, you skate. That's what you do. But who are you? Like, you aren't what you do. And this is from the 90s. Yeah, I mean.
I'm sharing this with my class. That is so
yeah, go watch the movie. Get it some love.
Yeah.
But I mean,
it's how do I know?
I mean, it's a good point.
I'm telling you, people. Disney is
Sometimes.
deep. No, all the time. Let it go. Take the next right step. Like, I mean,
I'll make a man out of you.
Frozen movie. Yes. Okay. Not all of it. You've crossed the line. Pocahontas, all of Pocahontas, the river and stuff like that. Mulan.
Yeah, that Pocahontas story isn't a green grass story.
Disney version and the little stuff. You can't look at the big stuff. You gotta look at the little stuff. You gotta pick out the gems.
Yeah, sometimes. Right. I'm with you.
That could be a book. I bet that already exists, like this psychology through the eyes of Disney or something to that effect. Yeah. Where are our researchers? Like, where are people? Where are you? Oh, I'm looking over there.
Yeah, it's crickets tonight. I mean, there's a Star Wars philosophy book, so I would imagine that these things exist.
I have seen that actually.
Yeah.
I will get on it and I will let you know. I'll ask Aaron. He will research it for you.
Oh, I totally forgot. Yeah, Sarah's family is like mass Disney too.
Yeah.
Yep, Sarah, we're not allowed to sing Frozen songs because it's copyright.
Oh, okay.
I was yelled at one time.
We don't. We're trying not to endanger our future monetization, if that ever happens.
Okay, I'll let it go. I won't do that.
It's a constant struggle.
Thank you, Steven. Steven comes. What does that even mean? He says, "Did you know that you can learn history from Billy Joel?"
I'm waiting.
Is that a song or something?
I'm pretty sure We Didn't Start the Fire is Billy Joel, right? Is that Billy Joel?
Oh, is
Yeah.
That's probably that's my best guess. It's
I was trying to think of songs he sang. I'm like,
it's hard to keep up with Steven sometimes. I'm guessing We Didn't Start the Fire. Yeah, We Didn't Start the Fire. There we go. So
back to
I
back to
I
our
did still, and
discussion.
I'm still kind of reading through. It's a difficult thing to read because it's so matter of fact. But the book Neurotribes, I don't know if you've heard of it. Kind of covers neurodiversity and the nature of evolution and everything and normal stuff. And the author is very adamant in pointing out how high the incidence of autism are in places like Silicon Valley, where their hiring practices may be a little different, but they have some of the highest productivity as far as moving our society forward as anybody else in the world.
So wait, so what is the implication?
Well, like the idea that they're the social, and again, I'm not, I don't like the word deficiency, but the social, the communicative struggles,
they lack social skills.
Don't necessarily these aren't intellectual, like the differences in brains don't limit intellectual capacity.
Oh, so they're saying there's a high percentage because the people that they hire are probably have autism.
Have a higher incidence of, yeah. And I mean, these aren't, we're not talking about sales jobs. We're talking about date.
I thought you were saying they were causing autism.
No.
I was so confused.
No, talking about like industries like data science and software engineering, things like that, where there's not as much need for, and some of them not even being team-based. Like you can be completely isolated and still be, I mean, I guess depends on how you want to categorize productive. But in these companies, to be productive, if they just stopped and kind of rolled back their understanding of their hiring processes and not can't gotten rid of somebody because of a bad interview or anything, so to speak.
Well, a lot more companies are opening to the fact to hire people with autism. Like you have to think about it. They're a rule follower. They're always going to be on time. You tell them what to do, and they're going to do it. And like you said, even a lot of the Silicon Valley places, if you think about it, they're in a cubicle. They don't have to talk to anybody. They can just sit and it's them and the screen and not talk to anybody. And, a lot of us need socialization and interaction. They don't. So that's the best type of person to get for those jobs.
Yeah.
And, a lot of them have those photographic memories. They love that stuff. They relish in it.
That makes me think, when you said the one lady who you said her name and like I should know who that is.
Temple Grandin.
Yeah, that person.
I mean, she went and developed, a humane way for cows to be slaughtered. She thought it was horrible for for people to put cows through this torture that they're going to be slaughtered. And she knew when something bad was going to happen for her to be like tightly squeezed. So she created something for cows to be a squeezing machine for them to be calm before they were going to be slaughtered. I mean, it sounds horrible, but it was a humane way for her, the way she thought. And, she's a doctor now, a doctorate and just.
But you said like her family like pushed her to be better. I could see if I had a child, maybe not now, but if I had a child who didn't want to socialize, my inclination would be to try to get them to socialize. We all need socialization. Like be my version of like trying to make them better, to push them to be better. Like, and not even just for conformity's sake, just because in my head, that will make them a happier, better person. So maybe that isn't.
Well, all you want is like your children to have friends. But let me tell you right now, he's outside I don't know what he's doing, walking around with those stupid straws, but he is happy as he can be. So you know what? If he's happy, I'm happy. Do I want him to sit and hang out with friends? Yeah, but he's happy.
That's a
And
hard, even with kids without autism, like it's that hard line where to push and
right.
where to let them be. Like,
Sometimes you have to follow through. Like, we would be at a playground, and instead of parallel playing with someone, you're throwing a ball back and forth. He was over there having the best time of his life. Should I uproot him from him having fun and force him to do something he doesn't want to, or do I just let him be himself and have fun?
yeah, I think that's an important lesson too for all parents and teachers.
I mean, you can introduce them. Hey, do you want to come over here and play the ball for a while? And he may do it like back and forth one or two, then go back and do his own thing. And you just have to, like I said, follow their lead.
Like I think of that too, like with my kids. If I had done that with my kids and said, "Hey, do you want to come, throw the ball?" My daughter probably would have at then that point felt obligated, like because that's
Right.
who
Molly would have done the same thing. Oh, you're telling me to do this. Let me do it.
Yeah,
Well,
and
Aaron, I don't want to do it. So
yeah, and they probably might not have even wanted to do it. So that's a struggle too with like that line to push when you're trying to push to be better but it's not I admire Aaron. Like I can't even tell you that you can just what amazing freedom to like say, hey, no, I'm good over here playing by myself. Thanks so much. Without the social pressures.
And see, for a long time, I felt bad and sad because he wasn't doing things with friends. But then, like I said, he's happy. He's, he likes to be around people. Absolutely, he likes to be around people. But a lot of times he likes to just watch. He might not want to participate. But is it healthy? I mean, he has his socialization. He does. But you know what? Right now, this is his downtime. He's doing what he wants to. He's happy.
And even if he didn't, let's say if he was a type of kid who didn't, like socialization just literally caused anxiety, but he was happy when he was alone. That's all we want, right? Like,
right. You just want your kid to be happy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just like, I wanted him to play baseball. We tried baseball. He loved it. I wanted him to play soccer. We tried it. He didn't like it. It's like, you just like with you, you wanted things for your daughters to do, but they may not want to do them. So it's like, how far do you push? Do you push, are you going to push one of them to be a doctor that you really want to be the doctor, but she wants to be a chef? You just have to follow their lead.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's tough.
Yep.
Stephen comes out with a helpful question. Thank you, Stephen.
Savage.
Stephen's actually he's either like super on point, like with the questions, or he asks the question and I don't even realize he's trying to be sarcastic.
Oh, God.
But he does ask, what are your thoughts on video games and autism? Do they help or hurt? I'm guessing because they tend to be quite isolating.
My son doesn't play them. He has no I know, shocker, huh? He has no desire to. I have other friends that are they're gamers and they love them. It's just like with typical kids. Some like them, some don't.
Yeah. I don't know why what's that word when you make something bad? Like you devilized.
Need
like
more information. Demonized? Is that the word you're looking for?
Demonized. Thank you.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
I like demonized video games for some reason. So would you say that's probably an issue I should work on? Because when you say he doesn't play them, I'm like, oh,
I know.
That makes me so happy.
Yeah, we had a Wii and he would do the sports on it, but as far as Mario, all that kind of stuff, I'm like, no, he has no. And that was just it. I tried shoving that on him because all of my other parent friends, their kids with autism love Mario Kart. I'm like, oh, come on, he could care less. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to push it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And
just
you
amazing.
definitely should not demonize video games.
I know. It's because I know so many people like that. That's like kids. That's all
Yeah.
they do. And again. So you go. This isn't what we're really talking about. We could do an episode on video games, or parenting. I guess this is parenting. So you have a kid that all they do is play video games. They say it makes them happy and brings them joy. So do you let them do it? Do you let them be, or do you push them towards something else? And
I
also,
think you can limit it, like, limit the screen time and then try to get them to do some other activity. You have a choice. We can ride a bike or we can join baseball, just not let it monopolize their whole time.
I guess you would never want anything to monopolize their whole time.
Right.
And also, throwing a remote control at the screen is not joy. Just saying.
Well, and it goes back to the conversation about. It goes back to supporting strengths and passions, I think,
Yes.
to some extent, because if that is what makes them happy, and then they get to a point in their life where they're applying they're deciding what to do, talking about going to college, and they go into video game development, or software engineering, even marketing, things like that, because that's what they feel connected to. You supporting that makes that path a lot easier for them to pursue their passions.
They also have to probably have a college or a high school diploma to do those things.
Oh yes, yeah.
Which means doing schoolwork so there comes the balance.
Yeah.
And do you know how many kids, and this is another thing that is just so awesome about Aaron, is that you know how many kids don't know what brings them joy? I just did a meeting with teens, like 7 or 8 teens, and we did like what brings you joy? Some people said family, friends, video games, but like there was not joy across their face when they said any of those things. I was like, I'm talking Disneyland joy, people. I'm talking you're driving and you hit Buena Vista and you're like that kind of joy. And they're like,
A video game.
Don't push your standards of joy onto other people.
That's true. Oh, that's true. Lucas says video games are great, not just for mental activity. It also helps with hand dexterity.
Yeah,
doctors who play video games are more steady-handed than those that don't. Lucas, does video game playing help carpal tunnel or hurt carpal tunnel?
Everything hurts carpal tunnel. The only thing that helps carpal tunnel is stretching, and
I stretch all the time.
Muscle and take a I don't know where my lacrosse ball is, right here. If you're having trouble with it in your left hand, do some exercises where you do some some muscle relief there, and move your arm around.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because your wrist muscles go all the way up.
Go all the way up. Yeah. Because you can have pain all the way up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've been doing
So
yoga.
Get yourself a lacrosse ball and really hurt yourself. Like, you're going to have to tolerate a good amount of pain to feel better. But and also get compression gloves.
I just gave him to Sage to use because she's now. Steven said hashtag Aaron's not a doctor.
Yeah, I am not a doctor.
You just play one on a podcast.
No, just that's what worked for me. I saw it on the internet, and that's what worked for me. And I find that most of my like my muscular issues have been able to be solved with a lacrosse ball.
Interesting. I'll have to look at what that is.
It's like getting a massage. You're just massaging yourself.
That sounded dirty.
It's wonderful.
We're a PG-13 show, by the way. I forgot to mention that.
That is crap.
We took a left turn.
Yeah, it did.
Aaron joined me on my squirrel adventure this time.
Yeah, it got away from us.
Usually I squirrel by myself.
Can't always be held accountable.
Oh,
But yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea whenever you meet somebody, no matter what, to meet the person first and to not come to any conclusions without a conversation, no matter what.
because you don't know. Even if you have the label, even or if you as you know their label, you still
Yeah.
don't know. You know almost nothing still.
Yeah. Well, and Mark Rober, who's the guy, speaking of squirrel, the guy whose squirrel video I was telling you to watch, the guy who's an engineer who does crazy stuff on YouTube, just released a video a couple days ago about his son who's autistic. And he's been, apparently some of the footage was super old because he's been working on it for 2 years, terrified to talk about it with the public at large. And he's got a very large audience, but that fear shouldn't have to exist. You shouldn't have to worry about, and I mean, we say this about damn near everything, but you shouldn't have to worry about the immediate negative reactions and not being able to put yourself out there, whether it's, for your family's sake or for your own sake, to just have that reticence. If we can get away from that, it'll all be better.
But do we need to? Do we have to share? Like, this is my son.
Right. Well, just like with John Travolta, no one knew his son had autism.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah. I mean, now, of course, it's coming out, but I mean, a couple of years ago, but I had heard about it, before he had died with his seizure disorder. But then he comes out saying he did have autism. But what does it matter? It's his son.
Yeah.
And if he didn't want the public to know, that's also his. But then people in the autism community kind of got a little miffed. It's like, why not be proud of your son? If he has autism, so what? Maybe you can open up a lot more doors with you having this high platform.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's another thing.
Nobody should have
Go
an
ahead.
obligation just for the sake of having said
No.
it.
It makes me think of I have a friend who is gay and went to like dinner with his sisters to share with them like that he was gay, and they're like, okay, and
So what? Yeah. I'm
like,
still gonna love you regardless.
but it's like not something you needed to tell us. Like how it goes back to the labels and helpful versus when should we come to a point where that's like it's not even relevant. Like, I don't need to come have dinner with my family to tell them I'm straight. You know what I mean? Like, so at what point are you just who you are? But again, like you guys talked about before, sometimes the labels are helpful. And like you said, if he had shared and had that high platform to share
his experience, his family's
experience. Yeah.
Or just bringing more awareness.
Like,
and because it makes like the normal people going, oh wow, it affects the people, the higher aboves as well. I mean, I hate to say the higher aboves. It affects famous people too.
Yeah.
I mean, in some and not all disabilities, like you can tell more or less if someone has Down syndrome. You can't really tell a lot of people have autism unless you see them in action, you hear them talk or do something quirky. Because I know a lot of kiddos walking down the street you would never know.
Yeah.
It's not
and do they
obvious.
want that label? They don't want that label.
Stephen makes a good point. Does the label legally bar you from things like the military or owning a firearm?
Interesting to say that. I just got my son's guardianship about a year and a half ago because I'm his legal guardian just for medical purposes. And at that point, I was asked, did I want him to be able to legally carry a firearm? And I said no. He's able to vote. He would not be able to go into the military because of his Poland syndrome. But I had to sign him up for the draft when he turned 18, regardless of his disability.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't do it, and I got one of those letters. You have 30
Yeah.
days to register your son, or you gonna go to, So yeah, I had to do that, and that was the hardest thing to sign. But it's
They wouldn't let him in anyway.
Well, and and I say this with the appropriate amount of reticence, but it's basically meaningless at this stage in our country's development.
yeah. But like I said, for me to get that letter, I'm just like, oh my God, but
Yeah.
by law, when your kiddo turns 18, you're supposed to sign up for the draft if you're a male.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that whole adventure either.
Mm-hmm.
I am a girl and only have girls, so I know nothing.
But you electively signed up to join.
Oh yeah, I joined.
Yeah.
It was her Napoleonic complex that got her into the military.
But but then again, I look at the fact that if my son with autism wanted to join it, why can't he?
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on their mental state,
Well, they would have to pass the same test everybody
Right,
else.
absolutely. And if they can do that, then why not? If that's what they want to do, they should be able to do it. Because you know what? You can do the computers in the Army. You can do a lot of things. You can drive a plane. Not everybody has to, shoot a gun. But I know, but like you said, if they could just go through the same amount of training, who says they can't do it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I lost track of my notes here, but the Israeli Defense Force, they have a special intelligence unit that is responsible for analyzing aerial and satellite imagery, and according to I think it was the Harvard Law Review article I was reading, that they are primarily staffed with individuals on the spectrum.
Wow. Which
makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, perfect positioning. This has been like eye-opening for me and seriously awesome, and I feel like I need to meet Aaron one day. Now
you're more than welcome to borrow him.
I've never met him in person. I don't think. No.
Maybe, gosh, when I was at Somerset. I mean, that had to have been many moons ago. I don't know. You may have seen him, but
I think I've seen him, but I don't think I've ever met him. Tell him he's awesome, and thank you so much for being here with us.
Anytime.
Yeah, are there any organizations that people can support? Places they can go to learn more and maybe get involved if they feel so inclined?
Well, the one that's near and dear to my heart is called FEAT. It's FEAT, and it's Families for Effective Autism Treatment. I used to be on the board. It started with a group of moms just wanting to do better for their kids, and it's now evolved. They do monthly parent nights out. They'll host like a thing where the parents can drop their kids off for 4 hours and they can go have a date night. They do ABA training. They do, it's just sport. They're the people you call when you first know your kid's diagnosed with autism. They will tell you where to go. They will help you find a pathway. If you need help with diet, they'll tell you where to call. If they need help with a lawyer, they'll tell you where to call. It's just, that's where I started. And I think that helped that in that organization grow as well. There's a lot more. There's Grant a Gift. That's really good. My son did social skills program with them and living skills programs with them. There's a lot of agencies out here, obviously more now than there were back then. But it's nice to see there are so many things available out there and that accept insurance now, which is good too.
Yeah. Yes.
Because most everything back then, it was out of pocket. And you just decide, do I want to pay for speech for my son or do I want to go on a vacation? I mean, autism's not cheap.
Don't get me started. There's another one. The health.
We could get out of hand very rapidly.
Have we had an episode about the health industry? I don't know.
I mean, we'd have to set aside 3 hours or so, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't want to say it's getting better, but there are a lot more resources now, like I said, that there were before, when he was diagnosed in 2001. It's evolved and it's everywhere. It's a household word. People, you met one person with autism, you've met someone with autism. And, 10 years ago, you didn't see it that often because when he was first diagnosed, it was like 1 in 250 kiddos. Now it's 1 in 54.
Wow.
So,
Interesting.
you put 54 peas in a bowl and there's one black one and that's not a lot. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's yeah.
Aaron,
But
you do the end.
are
I
we?
do the beginning,
Oh, I
you
didn't
do
know we
the
were. I
end.
didn't know we were getting there. Well, I just.
It's
Are you
so,
in wave again?
Yeah.
Wait, my Aaron wants to come on the screen
Oh,
again.
yay.
Come here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, come
I
here.
actually I was just
Okay.
about to check you.
Here, sit right here.
Yeah.
Just sit right here. Okay, sit down. You have to say hi.
Hello.
Yeah,
How
I'm
are
afraid
you?
They
there's,
think you're pretty cool.
yes. Oh, I'm afraid there's not enough room.
Okay, then go.
But,
He's got to go watch American Idol. Sorry.
yeah.
You are awesome, Aaron.
When are you gonna finish this?
I'm almost done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Should
okay.
I turn off
Yeah,
all
go
the
ahead.
lights?
Yeah, sorry. It's American Idol time.
No
Yes,
worries.
I totally understand that. Totally.
Yeah, so when we talk about the ideas of neurodiversity and having different experiences in life and seeing things from different perspectives, I mean that's kind of what this show is built on. Is it's really the core values is to see things from other people's perspectives and be open to what everybody else is experiencing. So when you talk to people, just talk to people. Don't have any, no matter what it is, don't have preconceived notions, whether it's an ex-con or anything else. Just you never know. The point is that you never know. So I think next week we're talking about climate change.
I think so. I think my internet's going wonky too. But I think we found a topic that Aaron and I might have differing opinions on. So maybe.
Good.
Yes, climate change
right.
next week.
All right, we'll talk about climate change next week. Monday, 7:00. You guys know. Please share with anybody you know. We'd love to have different perspectives, and we know next week will probably get a little spicy. So come join us. And in the meantime, please have meaningful conversations.